thank you guys for joining us here today. And we've heard a lot about, I think, the premise for the whole convergence play here. And we wanted to anchor this panel on that satellite convergence and how we can look at, capitalizing on these opportunities. We've got 40 minutes for the panel. You come from a number of different organizations, satellite companies, mobile operators, others. So everybody's got a diversity of opinion. Before I get into the questions, could we just give a 30-second elevator pitch for each of you, who you are and where you come from, and why this is a subject of interest to you? Just really quick. So Mark, please.
Yeah, so I'm the chief architect of Dish Wireless. So we created this fourth operator in the US. But recently we have also converged our EchoStar operations. So now we're the first combined wireless and satellite operation in the world. And we happen to be a fully 5G cloud native standalone. And so, yeah, of course, this is a very important and interesting topic for us, right?
Yes. Peter.
Hi, I'm Piotr Wesołowski. I'm from Deutsche Telekom. I'm leading space partnerships in our company. And that says a lot as well, that we have space partnership as a telco company. We are unique telco because we have operations in all mobile networks and fixed networks in 10 European countries. We also have operations in the US with T-Mobile. We also supply to space industry and to the European space programs. So we have a view of the whole ecosystem in space and into the telecommunication.
Thank you. Libby, please.
Hi. Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. Great to be here. I'm Libby Barr. I'm the Chief Operating Officer of Avanti. Avanti is a satellite company. We were established about 20 years ago. We have 4 satellites in orbit, but we're multi-orbit now. We support through our partners. We're in the UK, our London-based company, but we have offices across Africa, Germany, Cyprus, the US, and a lot of our infrastructure and so on is based across Africa, which I'll talk about as we get into it.
Thank you very much. Dave.
Yeah, I'm Dave Roscoe. I'm from ORBCOMM. I'm responsible for our satellite networks and our product development. I think my colleague Fran has pretty much outlined what the company does, specializing in industrial IoT applications, providing products and services. And just to note for everyone is that ORBCOMM, Fran mentioned that we started with our own LEO satellite constellation that we own and operate today. But we also partnered with Viasat, and we also stand up a IoT satellite network services on the Viasat constellation, which is geo-based.
Thank you very much. Anirban, please.
Everybody, good afternoon. My name is Anirban Chakraborty. I'm the CTO at Comtech Telecommunications. Brief history about ourselves. We've been in the industry for about 4 decades. And when Antonio from ESA was asking the question that how many of us work with MNOs versus SNOs, I had both my hands up. We have been selling, value-added services for 2G, 3G, 4G, and now 5G core cloud-native solutions to the MNO segments. And for the satellite world, we have been doing ground infrastructure end-to-end, all the way from antenna to bucks, modems, LNBs, amplifiers, etc. Very excited here because I've been, coming here for the last 15 plus years. This is the first time I'm seeing a true, convergence from a people perspective. So that's very exciting. Thank you, GSMA, for doing that.
No, it's our absolute pleasure. It is quite a sight to see. So let's get in it. So, we've talked about the convergence. I think there's probably broad consensus on what's driving that. But what I'm interested to get into first is sort of what's changed recently to accelerate momentum so much. We've talked about satellite for several years. We know it's been a part of the potential solutions to extend coverage, but there's so much happening now, and it's gaining pace so much. So I'm interested in why you think that is happening. And maybe Libby, I can come to you first on that. Mm-hmm. What would you highlight here in the last sort of 1 to 2 years that's changed that is driving this forward?
I might go slightly further back because I joined Avanti in 2019 from BT, actually. So I come from the telecoms world. I spent nearly 20 years in Vodafone and 10 years in BT. And when I came to Avanti in 2019, it was a little bit like stepping back to the early 2000s from a telecoms perspective. It was very different. And everyone talked about launching satellites. And really, no one discussed what they were going to do with customers. It was always about the launching of the satellites. And as an organization, we said, look, we're going to focus really heavily on the customer. And I roll forward maybe 2 years from that. And in that time frame, you're asking about the last 2 to 3 years. The difference is Elon Musk, actually. I think what Starlink has done to the industry has been absolutely huge. And actually, I think in a positive way. I mean, of course, there's ripples and challenges with that. But actually, it's brought, from a satellite perspective, a real understanding of the capabilities of satellite and what real, connectivity can bring. Yeah. And so from that perspective, I think it's very positive. Yeah. And ultimately now we're really focused on growing the business. It's exciting. And I think that's a big change.
Definitely.
And it's still going on.
And we will have Starlink here on our second panel, so I'm sure they'll opine on that and give us some good color. Mark, yourself, I mean, you Dish, as you say, with EchoStar, it's quite a unique approach there. What for you has changed in recent times to really accelerate momentum?
Yeah, I think new capabilities are important, but I think they're much less important than the demand. And the pressure that our customers have so much pressure in their daily business. They want to optimize supply chains, tracking, inventory, safety, I mean, tons of things. So the demand is there. And, with the cloud, people understand the value of the data, of the information. So, it's when the offer and the demand converge that things are happening, but the demand is there. Everybody wants to track their trucks, their containers, their machines. Everybody wants additional security and safety. That is what is changing, right? And everybody understands that if you have access to the data, you are more competitive. Yeah. So all of a sudden, as an industry, we have to deliver that, right? And then, yes, people are investing. We can do it. But the good news for our industry, the demand is there, right?
Yeah.
Anirban, do you concur with that, or would you add anything in?
Sure, I can add. I mean, I 100% concur. I think large part, I would say, COVID also helped us to realize this fact. This whole concept of digital divide that we keep talking about obviously pins under this aspect of ubiquity. But then we have been talking about Industry 4.0 for I don't know how many years now. But for that to truly happen, there has to be an amalgamation of these two different network entities or ecosystems that need to come together. And I think in the last 2 to 3 years, smart manufacturing, which we have been touting as one of the important use cases of 5G or smart agriculture that you were showing, that demands an amount of ubiquity which is not technically possible or financially possible within the just the terrestrial networks aspect. So I think we are coming to realize all of that as a group coming together, which is fantastic.
Yeah. Peter, I know we had a separate session on your stand yesterday. Deutsche Telekom has made a number of announcements of late here. Your perspective on this question?
Yeah, sure. We look differently at different topics and different markets here. So first of all, we see that the innovation in space industry accelerated very much in the recent years. So, and I give you a right, SpaceX and Starlink paved the way, actually show to the whole industry that something like this is possible. And that there was also a wake-up call to the space industry. We're looking into this for several years, and I can only agree. It's if you're talking with Satcom, for example, it's sometimes feeling like being in telco industry 10 years ago, maybe. This acceleration started to happen, and standards are starting to be adopted, and telco industry is all about standards. So we see the possibility that in the future, we might include those satellite services into our product portfolio based on 3GPP standards that are being key for telco industry to become telco industry as we see it today.
Dave, I know ORBCOMM he was very interested in the IoT side and the business side. Almost transitioning through, maybe this is a good point, to transition through what's changed, but into some of the use cases and how that's evolving, and about how satellite can help the industry monetize these use cases. I'd almost like to start with that B2B dimension, because that is a high growth story, and it's newer, let's say, than people were less aware of that, I think, in recent years, but it is growing very fast now. Can you walk us through, from your perspective, how you see that B2B story unfolding, and how we should think about that in the coming couple of years?
Well, for me, I would say that the biggest change that's driving all of this is cost of satellite services and products. So even, I've been in the business, since the dawn of time, right? And satellite technology has been out there for like 30 years. It's mature technology. It's reliable. It's robust, right? But even 10 years ago, as soon as you say the word satellite, everyone has in their head that, oh my goodness, this is going to be expensive,
Yep.
right? And over time, there's been a lot of good innovation in technology driving down the costs, both at the satellite, with all the new satellites being launched, lower cost to launch the satellites, lower cost of maintenance or operation of the satellites, and driving down satellite airtime costs, and also driving down device costs. And now all of a sudden, what was prohibitively expensive is now all of a sudden affordable. And that affordability is what's driving the convergence, shall we say, of adapting satellite into with cellular. And now when you look at most businesses, is that they're looking for coverage, connectivity, making sure that I want to have 100% connectivity, right? So therefore you're going to adopt satellite, and now you can afford to do that. But then you can also optimize your operating costs, right? And by going dual mode, which, we define satellite cellular, you can transmit your data over cellular first if available, and then if not available, satellite. So you can optimize, you get, 2 wins, coverage
Yep.
and cost.
And are there any specific industry examples from your experience you would highlight, like logistics, manufacturing, agriculture? Are there any you'd call out specifically, or do you see it more as a sort of broad-based B2B acceleration?
We have applications in all the vertical markets, right? And the biggest one that we have right now is in transportation, and satellite is used, and terrestrial is used. The same products and services are used for different applications depending where you are in the world, right? In North America, transportation, it's all about logistics, efficiency of operations, increasing profitability. You go into Brazil, same products and services are applied in transportation, and it's really about safety and security. Safety and security of the driver, safety and security of the load, right? But the biggest growth that we're seeing right now is in the agricultural sector. And if you look at even the market studies, looking at all the verticals and all the IoT satellite applications, agriculture is like 32% CAGR over the next 5 years. That's massive growth, right? And we are seeing that substantially in Brazil. And Brazil is, one of the top 5 agriculture producers in the world, and they have 75 million hectares of farming land. So you can just imagine, that's not going to be covered by cell, and so that's really driving. Now that you can make the satellite IoT solutions affordable, it's just starting to explode.
Yeah. Libby, your perspective on this, I think, is really interesting as well, because you kind of wear both hats. You came from the telecom world, you're now in the satellite world, so you've seen it from both sides. Are there any industry examples you would want to highlight here, or to call out for where satellite and telco combinations can best service?
I think there's two that I think about. We do huge amounts of work in Africa. That's a big part of our coverage. 75% of the business's investment was across, and the infrastructure was across Africa. There, it's about helping to connect the unconnected, and that's very much part of our core strategy. And with the big MNOs in countries like Nigeria, which are very challenging outside of the big urban areas, we would be deploying satellite services to connect sites in the most rural parts of the country. If I look at Nigeria specifically, we'll have connected, literally thousands of villages, and probably connected in the region of kind of 2.5 million people over that period of time. So I think working very closely with the MNOs on that, and that continues to be a really big part of our business. The second thing that we're seeing that's changing is around resilience, and I think this call for 100% connectivity all of the time. And if I look at South Africa as an example to that, we're working very closely with the MNOs and also with the banking industry around. They have a huge problem with what they call load shedding, but it's basically power cuts, 6 hours of power cuts on a daily basis. And so resilience there to be able to use satellite to take the connectivity out of the core network into satellite and basically keep services up, whether it's for retail trading, banking services, or just to protect the data centers. It's really key. So that's huge.
Yeah. I'm going to come to sort of go-to-market considerations and commercialization timelines in a minute. But Anirban, just first back to you. I mean, from context perspective, similar to the questions Dave and Libby have answered, do you, between the consumer and the business side, do you see both of those in play? Do you see one as sort of more of a near-term opportunity? How do you think about the balance here that we should be thinking about?
I'll echo and resonate to what they were just saying. I think B2B definitely, and I'll 100% echo with the smart agriculture, or let's say the agriculture piece of it, because we firsthand experienced it as well. We were trying to do a smart agriculture POC in Northern Virginia, and we said, instead of going to farmlands, let's go to wineries. And we went to so many wineries. Most of them were over 100 acres, and there is no connectivity as soon as you go in the middle of the winery. So the question was, even if you had installed terrestrial-based sensors, how are you going to even do data collection per se? Forget about even predictive analytics or larger things in life. So I think that's one play. The other play is, we believe and we are seeing that there is going to be an angle of B2B2X into all of this. And I think Antonio had this, one of his charts talked about an open gateway, right? So I think we will reach to an extent someday wherein, instead of satellite operators selling just connectivity or bandwidth, we are going to start selling or monetizing APIs. And that's where I see there is that angle of something else which is going to happen. I do not know what it is, but to answer your question directly, I'm thinking that it is definitely B2B. Yeah. Agriculture definitely is number one, and I think emergency services or whatever 911 back in there, I do not know what it is here. Those are definitely a candidate for the convergence of terrestrial and non-terrestrial.
Okay. That's really interesting. It's we're definitely getting a balance between the two, consumer and business, and emergency response, working with public sector authorities. I think a number of people in the audience could probably cite examples. We certainly could. There's a lot of work going on there too. So this is really a broad-based effort. I want to come to our operators here because I think a lot of people will be interested in the sort of timelines about looking ahead. when we can expect to see satellite connectivity at scale, be that at a regional scale or a global scale, depending on the jurisdiction you operate in. And maybe, Peter, I can come to you first. Again, you work for a very large operator, has subsidiaries in multiple countries. It feels like we're at a point of inflection here where there's a lot of trials happening, but we're now moving into a commercial deployment phase. How do you think about rolling out these partnerships to the point where we get, connectivity across your markets? What sort of timelines are you thinking about there?
From our perspective, we consider that we might be getting there in a couple of years, to be honest. There are solutions that are available right now, depending what market you're talking. You're talking about the IoT solutions are there, which is announced today. We launched cooperation with Intelsat. We're speaking Viasat, with Skylo. We do serve our customers with mobile connectivity, but we augment the connectivity also with IoT, satellite IoT, when there is now terrestrial connectivity. We are terrestrial operators, so terrestrial connectivity is always the most important for us. But if you're getting to some specific B2B cases that we discuss here as well, we might be able to cover this nowadays. But if you think about replacing broadband and fiber rollout, or augmenting fiber rollout with satellite, it's still very difficult. There is Starlink, of course, but they serve their customers directly. There are geostationary satellites that you could utilize, but they have limited capacity. So it still requires time, in my opinion, and it will take a couple of years until we get to the point where satellite connectivity could be considered as a third technology for mobile and terrestrial operators. For us, it's fiber, it's 5G networks, and then satellite might come if we get enough volume and enough capacity to serve our customers.
Okay, got it. Mark, what's your perspective on this? Like, when do you think we will see scaled satellite connectivity in the sky? What kind of timelines are we looking at?
Well, I think, we said it, there's a lot of opportunities today already, right? It depends on the markets. First of all, we have seen the importance of LEO satellites. We had GEO satellites that have been around for a long time, for backhauling, for a lot of fixed connectivity at a certain speed, but with certain capabilities. We're going to see that expand. Now, we're convinced it's never going to replace terrestrial. It's going to be a converge, right? But the thing that is happening is that now it's much more relaxed. I mean, we're an operator, a satellite operator, but it's much more relaxed as an operator, even owning your satellites, to go up to other partners and mix your traffic and your capabilities. In the past, these were protected silos. Now, at Dish, we feel, EchoStar, we feel very confident to share the different access technologies between other providers of connectivity. And that's the way you're going to see it. Now, the thing that is extremely important in our world, I mean, it's true for terrestrial, true for satellite, is devices. Mm-hmm. And I think we see a lot of progress from chipset manufacturers and others to bring devices to us with the right bands. I mean, there's still a lot of work to do to have the right link budgets. But when it comes to transport, putting it on a tractor, on a truck, where you can have a larger antenna, or putting it as a mission-critical out-of-band capability on a factory, all this is available today, right? And one thing we have not mentioned so far, we see demand for mission-critical and zero-trust security enforcement, where satellite is an additional layer, which is very secured, to increase your security at the terrestrial and complement whatever you need for your operations. A lot of people are concerned about intellectual property, and having this added security layer to detect, a zero trust environment is going to be very important. So I think it's going to be a graceful introduction. I think the industry is really cooperating. Of course, the 3GPP has done a great job with the promotion of the NTN, and then things have happened. We've seen LEO satellites where people say, "Wow, it works at great speed." So that's what we need.
And just I'm going to come back to this end of the panel in a sec, but just quickly coming back, Peter, you talked about the sort of, splitting out of fiber. You have fiber, you have 5G, and then potentially you have satellite. From a product marketing perspective, if I'm a consumer and I'm with T-Mobile or Vodafone or whoever, like, how do you think that will look in the future? Will it be an add-on to a tariff? Will it be a value add? Will it just be built in so that you seamlessly roam between different types of signal, terrestrial and satellite? How do you think about that?
From our perspective, we want to serve customer with the best network. The customer doesn't need to know which network it is. It was said before as well. So for our customer, it's important that it's connected. It's like the iPhone example was really good. I'm also in this industry for more than 20 years, telco industry. I remember times where we had to modify the communication protocols because there was no data available in the mobile network. Yeah. Nobody's thinking about this anymore. So the customer's perspective is to be the best connected to access their digital services, to access ChatGPT and AI, because it's not going to work without network connectivity anymore. And satellite, we want to have our customers connected everywhere, regardless if they are in the holiday home and the island or they're in the city. It's not every technology is suitable for every use case, but we don't want our customers to think about this. So that's and I think we need to rethink here the approach as well, because we hear satellite industry speaking very much about use cases, about this industry, that industry. We as telco, we serve the whole economy, the whole from the teenagers doing whatever application is popular nowadays, to business customers and governmental and security forces and covering disaster recovery as well. So we solve everything. And the question is, how can we do it regardless of the technology that's being used?
We got about 10 minutes left for this panel, and I want to, we've covered a lot of ground already, but I want to continue with the sort of look ahead lens rather than the look back lens. And I'm interested in, we've heard that momentum is building. It will still take, a few years for these constellations to become, commercially operable in some cases, or at least have global coverage. I think we've had some interesting comments on the product marketing angle. Looking ahead, I think there's questions on how to take this to the next level in terms of performance. How can satellite networks deliver a service comparable to terrestrial, or will that happen? And maybe, Libby, I can come to you first on this. When you look ahead, what with Avanti are you focused on in terms of optimizing performance, and how much of that requires collaboration?
Oh, collaboration is just such a huge part of what we do. And I don't think any of us can deliver what we need to deliver. If I go back to Nigeria or into Africa, it's so complex when you come to start deploying in these very remote areas. And we are delivering 4G services in those areas, and we'll deliver 5G when 5G arrives. So I think it is happening. I think the high throughput KA satellites are delivering those services. But coming back to the partnerships, we work with the MNOs, we're working with the tower companies, we have to work with the regulators, we have to have teams on the ground to be able to support. You have to have the infrastructure in the countries, and we're doing all of those things. We have all of those things in place, and I think that's ultimately how you end up delivering in these countries. And often you're going into areas that are very, very dangerous. So in some ways you need the government to support you when you're setting things up. So partnerships are key, and I don't believe that we could do it without them.
Anirban, do you want to chime in on that?
Sure. I agree, and it's actually an initiative we should all play together to build ecosystems. Because let's look at this. 5G is probably still new.
Yes.
We are seeing the outburst of LEOs, which means there are a lot of ground infrastructure that are being built besides the bird in the sky. And here we are trying to talk about merging these two new things, which is going to create a whole lot of complexity. And it is not just an ability of anybody having fat wallets. It is CapEx, yes, but what about OpEx? Will we be able to orchestrate and manage this complex hybrid kind of an infrastructure in a way that it makes money, it saves money, and at the end of the day delivers whatever it is supposed to deliver? And Piotr mentioned an excellent point. Today we don't care about connectivity. What we care is, did I check in online for my flight? And if I could not check in, I don't even think that it was not connected. I feel that my app is bad or my airline server is down. So connectivity is basically a table stakes or a hygiene factor, which we all take for granted now, which puts more pressure for all of us here to foster this ecosystem as we go forward.
Yeah. Dave, for your organization, I mean, I'm interested in, we often hear this statement, a technology looking for a solution rather than a solution, or a problem looking for a solution. How much, when you look ahead, do you think the challenges to scaling satellite connectivity come down to technology versus getting the commercial model right?
It's a combination of the both, right? Because no matter how cool your technology is, you don't start by saying, hey, I got this technology, this is what I can do, man, I'm going to go to the market and try to see if I can sell it, right? We go to market with, we have over 400 solution providers, and they are experts in niche markets and all the various verticals. And they are trying to solve a particular problem that exists in that business. And so they start there with the problem, right? And then they apply the products and services and to solve it. And knowing that they're going to have an ROI on that, and that there's value to the end customer, right? So you always start with the problem and then work yourself backwards. But then on the technology side, it's all about constant innovation, right? You have to constantly innovate. And I can say that for ORBCOMM, we spent the last 3 years developing our next generation satellite IoT network. And it's currently in beta trials with customers. And we're going to be announcing and rolling this out next quarter, right? And this new service, satellite IoT service, is 20 to 40 times faster in terms of data delivery compared to what we do today. Now, and also larger data message sizes. So that's evolving in that direction, and that's going to support the solutions, solving the solutions to various problems. Now, is that a satellite IoT, though, in the IoT sector, is it ever going to get equivalence with cellular? Absolutely no. Yeah. But with the increased data rates and transfer speeds that we're getting with our next generation network, we're trying to blur that line between satellite and cellular, right?
That's great. Last two questions to you guys here. Got just under 4 minutes. So, but again, sticking with the future lens, I'm interested in sort of, what you see as the key challenges to be overcome here. Again, whether that's technological, whether that's to do with regulation, whether that's to do with commercialization, what have you. How do you think about sort of the top 2 or 3 barriers to be overcome and your role in doing that? Just if I can have 2 minutes from each of you. Peter, maybe first.
So let me take it maybe from the European perspective. We're talking about Africa, and I know there are different challenges in Africa than in Europe. In Europe, we see that there is a main challenge being with the fragmentation of the telecommunication market in Europe. You have dozens of operators in Europe that are sometimes in multiple countries, sometimes in countries. And the single market European market, it's a challenge for us, for telcos. It's a regulatory challenge, it's the economy of scale challenge, it's a technological challenge as well. So to get the whole ecosystem together, we were talking about partnerships. We think it's key to overcome some of those barriers, but they cannot overcome all. And space is expensive. If you want to build a new constellation, it's going to billions, and no single operator can allow something like this.
Yep. Mark, please.
Yeah, I mean, I'm an opportunistic and optimistic person, so I'm not going to talk about challenges. I think our industry is extraordinary. I mean, our people are very good at solving problems. So I think the convergence, the demand, the fact that we have the cloud, the fact that we have extremely complex networks, but now we have AI to help. I think this is the best time for talking about those challenges and solving them. And I know the crowd we have here, is going to solve them. So actually, I'm very optimistic, right? And what we like in our domain is to have problems to solve. Otherwise, what do we do, right?
Ever the optimist. No, we share that sentiment. I think we think about these as things to be taken on together and overcoming these things so that we can all move it together. But there is a lot of optimism. There's no question. It's palpable. Well, we've covered a lot of ground in 40 minutes, and we still have other keynote presentations and another panel to come with a lot of industry leaders. But thank you all very much for being up here with us today. We shared some great insights, and I'm sure anybody in the audience who wants to ask you questions after can do so directly, but we really appreciate your time. So thank you.
Thank you.